Hello, good evening. It's my pleasure that we meet again today. This is trichologist John Boro, and I'm doing a continuation of educational videos in areas pertaining hair losses because that is my line of mastery. And I believe as we continue sharing this information, all of us are going to be empowered so that in case you have a similar problem or a close problem to what we are describing, then you know what you need to do. Because hair loss today, it's a problem that is affecting a bigger population of our people, and the solutions that we can have when it comes to hair losses are not readily available. But information, when we can share information, then we can be able to reach as many people as possible, and solutions can go to as many people as possible. I've done previous videos. You can check that from my Facebook page, Trichologist John, and then these are continuation on that. Today, as I welcome you to our today's video, I'm going to talk about hair losses, that two types of hair losses that manifest on the same part of the scalp. So they might look similar, but they're a bit different, even the way they happen and the way they appear, even the way they affect the hair follicles is different, but they tend to affect the same part of the scalp. So I'll be talking about hairline because that's where we have a bigger population, people having hairline issues. Now, technically, we have two types of hair losses that manifest on the hairline, and when it comes to treatment options, then it is out of the two probable hair losses that we devise a treatment plan that will work towards recovery or stoppage of the hair loss. And before I go in depth about the hair losses, as usual, I want to highlight a little bit about hair losses for better understanding and for me to form a good basis of argument as I continue with the video. Hair losses, technically we refer to them as alopecia. So the moment you get the word alopecia, that is a technical word represent hair losses. So hair losses, we categorize them in different ways, but I can just simply put two categories where all the hair losses can fall into. One, we have what we call cicatricial alopecias. And two, we have non-cicatricial alopecias. What it means with the cicatricial alopecias, we also call them scarring alopecias, or they form scars on the head. And it's quite a diverse group that involves several types of hair losses that are inflammatory. They are inflammatory disorders that affects the hair follicles, eventually causing permanent destruction of the pilosebaceous unit of the hair follicle, causing irreversible hair loss. With that I mean, cicatricial alopecias affect a part of your hair follicle that after the part is affected, you get permanent hair loss. I'll talk about that later on. And with the cicatricial alopecias, we put them in two categories. We have primary and secondary cicatricial alopecias. With primary, it means the hair loss itself particularly targeted the hair follicle is a target of attack. And the moment the follicle is directly attacked by the hair loss, then the follicular tissue that supports your hair and for the hair to be able to grow inside your scalp is attacked. And then the follicular tissue is replaced by a fibrous tissue that cannot be able to support hair growth, and eventually your skin loses the ability to support your hair to grow, because there are those particular parts of the hair follicle that are very essential for your hair to grow. So if they are attacked by anything and most of them are systemic, that is from inside your body, and if that part is affected, then it is likely that your follicular tissues will be replaced by fibrous tissue, and fibrous tissue cannot be able to support hair growth, and eventually you lose hair permanently. Whereas we have secondary, that is secondary cicatricial alopecias or scarring alopecias, where yes, the hair follicle is affected, but it was not the primary target. This is what sometimes we can talk about, the hair follicle being affected by accident, or it can happen as the hair loss is happening, then by any chance the follicle cannot be able to survive. It has to be affected, but it was not the target. For example, you find that when it comes to severe follicular infections, so the infection was not to affect the follicle, but the follicle is a part of the area where the infection is happening gets to be affected. Also, we have other like physical injuries, like when your scalp is injured, the injury is not targeting your follicles, but your follicles automatically gets affected by that. And also with that, we have something like traction, and I'll talk about that because that is one of the hair losses that I want to discuss today, because I have quite some people who are seeking assistance because they have a hairline problem caused by traction or trauma or pulling. When traction is happening or when the pulling is happening, is not actually that you're pulling the hair out. It is through the styling that makes the pulling possible for the styling ability. But through the styling and pulling, you lose your hair. So that is secondary alopecia, or secondary scarring alopecia. Then we have non-scarring alopecias. And this non-scarring alopecia means when they affect our follicles, they affect the part of the follicles where they cannot cause permanent damage to the follicle. So it means non-scarring alopecias, they are recoverable. So you can be able to reverse them. But still, put caution on that because it's a huge debate. Even if you talk about non-miscarrying alopecias being reversible, time is of essence because it has been known that if hair loss starts as non-cicatricial or non-permanent, and then it stays for a long period of time, then it can transform from non-permanent to permanent hair loss. And that's why time becomes of essence. I have Chaze Mululu, very, very much welcome. And Nunu Long from South Africa, you're also very much welcome to the video. I appreciate your audience. So with the non-scanning alopecias, we have two. We have two that falls squarely on that category. One we call that androgenetic alopecia. This is hereditary hair loss, a hair loss that affects a lineage, that is a family lineage, where the father is bald, and it's likely when the father gets children, the children also get bald or they be carriers. When they get now grandchildren to the father, they can also get the same problem. Also, we have another hair loss we call alopecia areata, a hair loss that happens so drastic or so quickly, and then it forms patches on the scalp, and they are clean, very regular patches on the scalp that are not irritated. They don't have inflammation. They don't have any impurity, but clean scalp. But the hair is not growing on those areas. That is a general characteristic of alopecia areata, which is also suspected to be caused by autoimmune miscommunication in the body, where the follicular tissue becomes the target. But where the target happens when alopecia areata is happening is a part where it cannot cause permanent hair loss, and that's why it becomes easier to reverse. So in short, what I mean, when it comes to interventions on hair losses that affects the part of the hair follicle, we call that infundibulum and isthmus. Those are the upper portions of the hair follicle that contains the living part or the cells that controls the functions of the follicle. If those cells are affected, then the follicle literally loses control of growth, because it is the stem cells that dwells in the lower part of the isthmus that controls the functions of the follicle. So if those cells are affected, Deborah Crockett Jackson from America, thank you so much, from USA, thank you so much, and good morning. Here it is good evening because it's in evening, but I know in USA it's good morning. Thank you so much, and you're welcome into the video. So if the effect that is going to happen on the follicle happens on the isthmus and the infundibulum part of the follicle, that is the upper portions of the follicle, then it is likely that hair loss will be permanent. But if hair loss is happening and affecting the follicle on the lower portions, that is the lower part of the follicle and the hair root, if the effect is on the lower portion of the follicle, then it is likely that hair loss can be recovered. But of course, as I said, time is also of essence, where if the hair loss is addressed in good due time, there's a very likelihood that the hair can be recovered. Now, At the same time, as we talk about hair losses, we talk about their problems that makes you to experience the problem you're calling alopecia or hair loss. So it comes now to addressing the hair loss, in general. Then it means it's also very important for the fact of what is causing the hair loss to be addressed. And that's what now in my video I'll refer to as treatment. So treatment entails the processes and the means that will be employed so that whatever is making the scalp to lose hair, to stop losing hair. And that's why, to me, as a hair loss specialist, dealing with hair losses, it's always good to categorize them into two. One will be controlling or stopping what is making the hair fall from the scalp or what is making you lose hair from the scalp. Eunice, thank you so much. Janet, thank you so much. I've seen in the video, so continue watching. If you have questions, you can throw them in, and then on my timeline, I'll be able to answer them. Thank you so much. So now, if the effect is permanently on the hair root and the lower portion of the follicle, as we discussed now, we can be able to, it's easier to treat that. But if the hair loss is affecting the upper portion of the follicle, where we have the stem cells and we have the sebaceous gland, then it is likely that that hair loss will be scarring alopecia or scarring hair loss or permanent hair loss. At the same time, if treatment is sought early, even if you're having permanent hair loss and the destruction during treatment is not adverse, then you can be able to rescue as many hairs as possible. Meaning, if you're having scarring alopecia or permanent hair loss, and the hair loss has not encroached a bigger part of your scalp, then during treatment, it means we are stopping the action of what is making you lose hair. That is what we mean by treatment. When you stop the action, it means if you have lost hair to a certain extent, you won't lose any more hair, meaning the hair loss has been halted, it has been stopped. It cannot be able to affect any more hairs. So if you're having permanent hair loss, it means the hairs that you have already lost, we cannot be able to recover them. So it means it's permanently lost, but you have rescued the hairs that were being affected, and maybe you could have lost even more hairs. So you're able to rescue them. Then number two, if you're having temporary hair loss or non-scarring alopecia, it means whatever is making you lose hair, it can be controlled, and it has to be controlled, and that is treatment. And then after treatment, then we address the issue of, yes, we are not losing any more hair and the hair loss is inactive, or we have deactivated the hair loss, but now we need to grow hair. So we, like how I had mentioned, that with non-cicatricial alopecias, it means the cells, the stem cells and sebaceous glands, that is the upper portion of the follicle, is still active or inactive but needs to be activated. So it means the follicle can start producing new hair. So after treatment, if you're having non-scarring alopecia, then it becomes important for this process to be initiated again so that the hair can start to grow. And that's why a good treatment plan is supposed to address the two issues. That is stoppage of what is making you lose hair, that is treatment. Then after treatment is reactivation of hair growth process. And that is now where now the hair is motivated and encouraged and stimulated so that it can start to grow again. And for the hair to grow, remember, because I've talked about stem cells are the ones that are responsible in control of each and every individual, because every hair follicle has its own group of specialized cells we are calling stem cells. So when you talk about hair, the hair starting to grow again, so it means we have to reactivate the stem cells so that they can be able to control the growth. That is, we remove the hair from dormancy and then we bring it to active cell division so that you can start now having new hair growing. And in that process, I can confidently say we're having people who are having alopecia, and by good chance, treatment has been effected, and then hair growth has been stimulated, and new hair is starting to grow, and then you're able to overcome naturally the whole issue of hair loss. And that's why still, if I put a disclaimer at that point, for you to know whether you are in the category of scarring or non-scarring, then you need to see a specialist. During consultation, all this will be enough, and then from there you're able to know whether you're having scarring or non-scarring alopecia. But whichever way you have, I believe with the current knowledge and understanding of hair growth, then it is easier for you to be treated or for you to see a specialist and to initiate that is hair loss recovery, because it will save you, losing more hair, even if you're having permanent hair losses, rather than staying with it and then eventually affecting a bigger part of your scalp, of which it will be even more difficult to control or for you to regrow your hair. Now, today, like I said before, I'm highlighting this video to hairline issues. Jackie Hope, you are very much welcome to the video. And thank you so much for your comment. I really appreciate your comment. Mary Ngogi, you're very much welcome too. I appreciate. Karibu sana. Now, today I'm highlighting two hairline hair losses. The first one, we call it frontal fibrosing alopecia, or in short, we define it to as FFA. And FFA is a hair loss that affects both men and women, but predominantly it affects people of the white skin, that is mainly Caucasian. But still, even on dark skin is also another effect, because I have seen people who are having the same problem, and I'm assisting patients who are having the same problem. And frontal fibrosing alopecia is characterized by a distinctive clinical pattern of progressive recession of the frontal, that is the frontal part and the temporal hairline. And sometimes it is associated with loss of eyebrows. So as your hairline is recessing, or as your hairline is going towards the back, as you continue losing your hair from the front hairline, then also at the same time it is likely, because it has been seen that about 50% of the people who are having frontal fibrosing alopecia, then they are also losing their eyebrows. So if you're having a hair loss that is starting at the front hairline, and then you see that you're starting to lose your eyebrows, and you start losing them from the outer corners, and most of the times you start losing from the corner to like a third, then eventually it will clean up all the eyebrows, then it is likely that you're having the frontal fibrosing alopecia. Now, this alopecia, as it happens, if you look keenly at the hairs, that are on the last portion of the hairline, you'll find that there are very small swellings on the follicles. That is, we call them inflammations. That is follicular inflammation, where the hair is inserting to itself towards the scalp. That place is swollen, and actually you can see it. You can see those pimples all around the hairline when that hair loss is active. And if you look at the scalp, most of the times we don't have problems like pain, like swelling, that is the part being swollen. It looks very normal, and that's why sometimes people say they have a big forehead, because when you look at the characteristic of the forehead and the part where the hairline has already affected, it looks like it is an extension of the forehead, because it is so clean. Even when you touch it, there is nothing abnormal about the part where the hair loss has already affected the follicles. And sorry. And actually, the recession of the hairline when you're having the frontal fibrosing alopecia is likely to be about 1 centimeter to 6 centimeters from the hairline to the part where it eventually stops, because it doesn't affect the whole scalp. Actually, on severe cases that personally I've seen, it goes to somewhere behind the ear. So it will clean the hairline all the way to behind the ear, and then it has a distinctive feature where when it cleans the hairline, you see the hairline has some formations, that is irregular formations. But you have frontal fibrosing alopecia, when it starts from one ear, it creates a literally straight line from this ear going straight up to the top part of the head, then going straight again to the other ear. If you have a hairline problem where the hairline has almost a straight line from one ear going straight to the other ear, it is likely that is frontal fibrosing alopecia. And more research is being done so that more understanding can be, can be brought now to the information level, so that more people can be able to understand how it happens. But it is highly suspected that it is an autoimmune disorder where the immunity, the white blood cells are involved when it comes now to to the formation of the frontal fibrosing alopecia. So it is known that most probably we have some sort of connection between your immune system and the follicular tissues, eventually creating the problem. Ibrahim Juma, Ibra, that is from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Karibu sana kaka. I welcome you so much. I have Aborore Adekoya, that I believe from Nigeria. You're very much welcome. Kimberly Peck from New York. You're very much welcome to the video. It's a pleasure having you guys. Let's learn together. If there's any question, you can throw it in. Valentin Kisorio, you're also very much welcome to the video. So it is a hair loss that is systemic. I classify it as a systemic hair loss because it is a hair loss that starts from inside the body, and it is a problem that starts from within the body functioning systems, that now the hair loss is created. And if you have the hair loss, there are good things and bad things, or there are challenges behind it. That it is in the group of cicatricial alopecias. It is the group of permanent hair losses, meaning when it is affecting the follicle, it affects the part of the follicle where it is hard for the follicle to survive and recover. And actually, it eventually creates permanent hair loss. And that's why with the frontal fibrosing alopecia, it is so important for it to be discovered and treated at the onset, at the beginning, because it doesn't come all of a sudden. That is, it's not a sudden appearing hair loss. It comes and it manifests with the time. So it is so important that in case you're having frontal fibrosing alopecia, for it being a permanent hair loss, before you lose your hair permanently, then it is very important for your scalp to be treated, and that's why early treatment becomes very important for FFA. Now, for the disease to progress, because I've said it comes very slowly, it has a general characteristic of losing your hairline, or your hairline, your hairline recessing or receding. That is, the hairline coming from where it is, then the effect is happening towards the inside part of your head and enlarging your forehead. The hair loss tends now to recede to something about 0.3 centimeters to something about 0.3 millimeters to something about 1.7 or 2 millimeters per month. So if it is more aggressive, then about 2 millimeters recession per month. That is quite a high rate. Others will have a very slow rate of about 0.1 to 0.3 millimeters per month. So it is a slowly progressing hair loss that you can easily note that my hairline is slowly is getting worse as the time is going. And one thing I would like to communicate at that point, in case you're having a hairline issue, please, I'll beg and I'll request that it is so important for your hair to be recovered, because remember, being a permanent hair loss, we cannot be able to regrow the hair again. It is important for the hair loss to be stopped before it affects, much of the hair losses, because during treatment, the hair loss can be stopped. But the moment now it affects the follicle and you lose the hair, then you lose that hair permanently, and it is very hard for you to be able to recover the hair. That is frontal fibrosing alopecia. Hairline problem number 2, which is now quite a majority, and that's where most people are affected. And it mainly affects people of African origin, and much of it is attributed to styling. We'll talk a little bit about it, because that's the hair loss we call TA, or traction alopecia, or traumatic alopecia. This is a form of a hair loss that is acquired. It is not systemic. With the traction alopecia, this is something that has been done on the surface, that is on the outside of the skin, not systemic, that has affected your hair and eventually making you lose your hair. And much of the traction alopecias, they happen from prolonged or repetitive tensions on the scalp, especially when styling is being done, when hair styling is being done. And it is interesting that it was discovered, traction alopecia coming around and people discovering it and being aware of it happened somewhere in 1907 in Greenland. After ladies continued styling their hairs, they started losing their hairlines because of wearing tight ponytails. And that's when now traction alopecia came to the front and people became aware. Now today, almost 100 years, almost a century after, we are very much aware of traction alopecia, and actually it's a common hair loss that we commonly see it, and it affects many people. Many people are affected by that. Now, it can also be due to weight, because there are people, especially, I always caution people when I witness people who are in the salon and they're being made, their hairs are being styled, where they put styles that are too heavy or they have quite some weight that to be suspended to the follicles. And most people don't relate to that weight because they always tell you, I don't feel the weight. But note, it is not you as a person who is feeling the weight, but they are the minute structures that forms the hair follicles, very minute singular cells that holds together to make the hair grow and to hold your follicle together for your hair to grow. Those are the hairs that are feeling the weight. So if you're having a hairstyle that will be suspended from your scalp, that is hairstyle that is from the scalp and then hanging down, then you are increasing the risk of having traction alopecia. Also, another way of styling is, and this is the most common, tension. When the hair is being styled, the people who are styling the hair put a lot of tension on the follicles. And I can tell you, most ladies, when they go for these hairstyles, because we have hairstyles that are they're very, very prone when it comes to traction alopecia, then it is likely that when you go for those styles, for example, braiding, we have twisting, we have dreadlocks when they are retouching and retwisting them, we have weaving. When they're doing that, the moment you start feeling pain when the braiding or when the weaving is happening, then the tension that is going to your follicles, it is too much and it is too huge that those delicate cells cannot be able to sustain the tension that is being put on those hairs. Cesar Mashinini from South Africa, thank you. Also have Simone Boutin, you're very much welcome. And Komotso Matilwa Simango, you're very much welcome to the video. Guys, I appreciate your presence and let's continue learning. When you have questions, you can throw them in because I can see so many questions coming in. Then on my timeline after the video, then I'll be able to answer you. Please engage as much. Let's empower each other with information. So the tension, because I've seen ladies in the salon when they are being plaited or when they're being braided, the pain is too much that they have to hold the base of the braid when the braider is continuing braiding because of the pain that they're feeling. That pain, when you subject it now to the follicular tissues, those cells that hold the hair together, is too much that they are detrimental to the growth of the hair inside that follicle. And you know what happens? Eventually, the force is too much, and there's a very high risk that the follicle, the hair plus the tissues that hold it together in the follicle, will come out, and the follicle is left. The follicle is left when it is empty. When it becomes empty, then you start getting bald. Then you start getting alopecia. So this is a hair loss that can be easily controlled, but we need to know how it happens and the condition to which we come to get traction alopecia, so that we can be able to avoid it. Rama Saidi Swale, you're a great person. I always follow you. Thank you so much for your time on the video. Thank you so much for watching. You're very much welcome. Now, as long as the styling that is done on the hair is repetitive and it has tension, and then you repeat it and then you do it over a long period of time, then that is a huge characteristic of creating TA, that is traction alopecia. So people who do tight ponytails, people who do bangs, people who do gel styles, the gel styles, and then you put a ponytail, the holding gels, people who do a lot of braiding. Nowadays, people who are doing dreadlocks, and then you do the dreadlocks, they are tightened, especially the tension that I'm starting to see currently. It is not happening during the retwisting of the dreadlocks when you're retouching them, but it is happening during styling. After styling, when you look at how the scalp is cramped up by the tension between the individual dreads, it is too much, and eventually the risk of the client losing the hair through traction alopecia is highly increased. And that's why the hairstylist who do styling, it is good for us to be very careful when it comes now to hairstyling, to avoid tension so that we don't create a secondary problem which will be even more troublesome to your client when they start losing hair. Because after all, it doesn't make sense. When your client loses hair, what are you going to style tomorrow? So I think all of us are supposed to be ambassadors of good styling and tensionless hairstyles so that our clients can have hairs to bring to us tomorrow, because this is what we do for a living. So those tight hairstyles, gels, that is holding gels, we have ponytails, we have rubber bands, because a rubber band, the rubber band that is used most of the times in banks to hold money together, the bundles of money, that is the worst you can put on the hair. So those who put those rubber bands, you're increasing the chance of traction alopecia and also hair breakage, because that rubber band literally chokes the hair on where it is tightened, and it creates a demarcation where the hair breaks at that point. So people who hold ponytails, they are likely to have hair breakage where the ponytail is held. At the same time, because of the tension when pulling the hairs towards the ponytail from the hairline, then you're likely to create now traction alopecia. And with the gels, I can be a little bit categorical on that, and because most people do a lot of styling that contributes to traction alopecia. So people who do gels, before they do gels are done most of the times when they put relaxers on the hair, because relaxers straighten the hair, so they give better straight formation on the hair. So when you put gels, the outcome looks so neat and so controlled and very straight and very beautiful. But remember, the relaxer service is a weakening, is actually relaxer services are the highest in terms of weakening in the salon services. So you weaken the hair to, if you do it professionally, you weaken the hair to about 80 to 85%. So 15% of strength is left on the hair to hold on the head. Then on top of that, you put holding gel, which is a hardening product full of alcohol. Then you put it on the hair. Then you pull the hair towards where the ponytail will be put. So the gel, the relaxers, the tension all contribute to hair issues, and the pulling being a good starting point of traction alopecia. The gel and the relaxers, that combination becomes another recipe for hair breakage and poor growth in terms of hair health. So if you can be able now to take care of the causing factors, like now relaxing the hair and doing a lot of gels, then it is likely that we can minimize the chances of us getting traction alopecia. Now, good thing about traction alopecia, it starts as a non-scarring alopecia, or it starts as a temporal hair loss, meaning it can be reversed. So being a good story of reversal, time becomes important, because it has been known that if traction alopecia takes long before it is controlled, then it is hard for it to recover. So people who are having traction alopecia that has gone for decades, then chances of recovery of those hair follicular cells becomes quite a challenge. But if discovered early and then treatment is started early, then recovery of traction alopecia is almost a guarantee. So one thing, because most of the traction alopecias are caused by styling, so it means one of the solutions that we give, believe it or not, is stop what is making you lose hair. If it is styling, look for better styling that is not subjecting your hair loss to traction or pulling. Meaning, look for hairstyles that will have least tension on the hair. So the moment you start doing that, then you're giving the hair chances of recovery. Now, sometimes when the hair loss is happening, when traction alopecia is happening, you can easily tell. Because one of the characteristics will be, well, after you braid the hair or after you've styled the hair and the style has put a lot of tension on the hair, one, it is likely that you're going to feel pain. So painful scalp after styling is a very good avenue of you getting traction alopecia. Sign number two, that you are candidate of traction alopecia. After you have been styled, the second or the third day, check your follicles, check the insertion of your hair to your scalp. That is the point where the hair gets in the scalp. When there is some swelling or it is swollen and there's some pus, you see some white sort of, because that is pus, and that is pus, and pus is an indication of an infected follicle. Because remember, the skin is the first line of defense against bacterial infection. So the moment you pull the follicle out, the moment you dislodge the hair from the follicle, it means you have exposed the delicate parts of the follicles where the skin now is broken. And remember, these bacteria are always available everywhere. They're on the skin surface everywhere. So it means the moment now you dislocate the hair from the attachment on the follicle, so you create an opening where, especially Staphylococci bacteria, goes in the follicle and causes an infection. So when you see a follicle that is having a dot or a point of pus, then that is an infected follicle. And that even aggravates or makes the issue of traction alopecia even a possibility, because it means an infected follicle is a follicle that can be able to sustain the follicular tissues. So the cells can easily die. When they die, so it means you lose the hair permanently, mainly not because of the tensions per se, but because of the added bacterial infection that will make you lose the hair. So when you see pimples and pus after braiding, weaving, after doing styling, then it is likely you're a candidate of traction alopecia, because that is a problem that is being, you can actually see the problem of inside part of your follicle, that is the hair root, and the problem you're being communicated on the surface that something is not right, and there's a likelihood that you're going to lose that hair permanently. So it's good for you to, very good for you to be very, very keen and very observant, so that you can tell when things are not going right. Diana Waboy, you're very much welcome. Princess Dada Mfusi, you're very much welcome. And then I have a good friend of mine from Mombasa, Lisfa, you're very much welcome. I've seen you. Welcome to the video. And I appreciate your presence. Keep on posting the questions after the video. I'm going to review all of them, and I'll answer each and every question that will be thrown in the video after the live session is over. The hair loss, or because it's happening on the hairline, so it means it becomes more of a noticeable part of the scalp, because both frontal fibrosing alopecia and traction alopecia, they happen at the front hairline. So even hiding them becomes of a challenge. My brother George from Dubai, thank you so much for joining in. Let's learn together, and I appreciate your time in the video, and be blessed. So it means both frontal fibrosing alopecia and traction alopecias, because they manifest on the front hairline, they manifest on the most embarrassing part of the scalp, because everyone can see it. And actually, most of the people who are having these two issues, they tend now to do a lot of hiding. And, they're the ones that will put, say, things like wigs, they will put things like capes on the head, so that at the end of the day, this is the reception part of your face. This is the entry point of your of interaction with the people. And the moment the hairline is being affected, or is affected, and you actually have lost it and it is balding, then self-esteem and and all these social support and physio support are always affected. And that's why it is so important for us to be keen in case a problem start to happen on the hairline. Let it be addressed as soon as possible, so that we don't lose the hair. And as we put it, women and hair, it's so important and it's so key. And that's why I'll urge all my sisters out there, in case your hairline is starting out to get issues, let it be addressed as soon as possible. It will be cheaper, it will be easier, and it won't affect your lifestyle, because you'll be able to hold your hair the way it is. At the same time, you'll be able to live life as usual, because you have halted the problem early before your hairline is affected. Moet Ribs, you're very much welcome. My brother, Dr. Peter Mboro, that is from Embu, you're very much welcome to the video. Spanyora Maingi, colleague of mine in the industry. You're also very much welcome to the video. Now, because both frontal fibrosing alopecia and traction alopecia happens on the hairline, how can you tell the difference? There is a physical difference that anyone can be able to tell, because at the same time, if you look at the hairline and you're having traction and you're having frontal fibrosing alopecia, the appearance of the two hair losses physiologically is different. With that, I mean, if you're having a problem of traction alopecia, your hairline is not purely clean. There are those hairs that we call vellus hairs. Vellus hairs are those hairs that are not very visible. They are fine, and they are most of the times they are not very colored, so they're not as dark as the hairs that you have on the scalp. So when you touch your hairline, you feel those baby, and let me call them baby hairs. You feel those baby hairs, technically call them vellus hairs, and you can feel them all along the hairline. If you feel those baby hairs, then you're having traction alopecia. So it means with traction alopecia, not every hair is, actually you can lose about 90% of the hairs, but you cannot lose 100% of the hairs. Vellus hairs will be left. So there will be traces of hair when you touch or when you look keenly on your hairline, you'll be able to see those fine, soft, small baby hairs. At the same time, if you're having frontal fibrosing alopecia now, the problem, that is the hair loss, cleans each and every hair follicle, be it baby hair, be it terminal visible hair, it cleans all the hairs. So it means when you're having frontal fibrosing alopecia, when you touch your hairline, it's like you're touching your forehead. There is no evidence of any hair whatsoever on that part of the hairline. So it's so clean and smooth. And that's why people talk of, I have a big forehead, because it looks like, it shares almost the same characteristics as the forehead. Because the forehead, of course, you have those very small hairs that are not visible. And actually with the frontal, it gets worse, because with your forehead, if we have those baby hairs, the vellus hairs are on the forehead. But on the frontal fibrosing alopecia part of the hairline, where it has been affected, even those baby hairs, all of them are destroyed. So it means there is no evidence that is left with the frontal fibrosing alopecia that there was hair, previously. So there is total destruction of the hairs, both visible and invisible hairs. So that way, physiologically, you can be able to tell whether you have frontal fibrosing alopecia or you're having traction alopecia. Now remember, for those who are joining now, for better clarity, those two hair losses manifest on the hairline, but histologically, they manifest differently. And that's why when you're having frontal fibrosing alopecia or FFA, it is likely and it is true that your hair follicles are destroyed permanently. So there is a very high chance that the moment a hair follicle is affected, you lose it permanently. And then in case you're having traction alopecia, there's some good news, because the hair loss is known not to contribute to permanent hair loss. So you can lose hair, yes, but the hair can be recovered. There is a very high chance of the hair loss to be recovered. But with my experience now, if I leave the research and all that, with my experience as a certified trichologist, I've come to know a common connection of traction alopecias, whereby most people ask me, can my hair be able to grow back? Because when you look at it on the surface, we don't have any hair. But in actual sense, during the happening of the alopecia, something happens, whereby when you look at the hair, I have an illustration here, maybe you can follow me. With the permanent hair losses, the hair loss happens between this point, that is, this is the surface, this is now the hair that we see here, this part here. From here, this is now below the skin, because this is the epidermis. So from the epidermis, we are not able to see it. So this is the internal structure that we generally call it the hair root. Now we have the infundibulum part, then we have the isthmus part up to this point here. This is the erector epidermisal. This is the sebaceous gland. So the joint between the sebaceous gland and the erector epidermisal here, there is a group of specialized cells that are always on this part here. That is what we call the bulge of the hair follicle. Now, if the hair loss, when it is manifesting, it manifests on the upper part. The upper part is now the infundibulum and the isthmus, then that is a permanent hair loss. Because the moment this part, the upper part of the hair follicle is affected, then you have permanent hair loss. Because the moment you lose the stem cells that controls or communicates and controls the activities of all the cells in the hair follicle, if they are destroyed, then we don't have any communication on that particular follicle. So eventually you lose. There's nothing that can grow in there. So that is permanent hair loss. So with the frontal fibrosing alopecia, the attack comes on the upper part, that is on the stem cells and the sebaceous gland around this upper portion of the hair. So eventually, the moment you lose that part of the hair, we lose the hair permanently. Now, with the traction alopecia, something great that happens is this part is not affected. That is, the infundibulum and the isthmus is not affected, so the stem cells are left intact. But the effect, because it is on the follicle itself, now you can lose the hair, that it can get uprooted. But because we still have the cells active here, so it means with the stimulation and activation, these cells can restart again the whole follicle to start producing new hair again, and that is good news. Now, with my experience, I've come to know that when the tension or the pressure that is put on the follicle for you to lose the hair, if the tension is too much on the surface going up, because the effect will come from the hair, because this is the root part where the hair connects to the body. This part here, if the tension is too much, there's a very, very high risk that the tension goes to the hair root, then eventually the hair gets uprooted from here, and then you lose the whole structure of the follicle. And then because now you have lost the structure, the whole of this part becomes bare, and that's why we call it is a scarring, yes, but it's a non-scarring, because you have a scar, because there'll be no hair, because you have lost the hair, so there'll be some sort of a patch. But remember, if this part, when the whole tissue was coming out, was not affected, especially the part of the stem cells on the erector epididymal and the sebaceous gland are not affected, then the chance of reviving this follicle are very high. Be it empty, the hair can grow. But not during the tension that was put for you to lose the hair. If the tension was too much and the whole structure came out, then you have a chance of losing that hair permanently. But most of the times we find that the root is healthy and strong enough to withstand the force. So the root is holding strong enough, and then the tension is too much, then the hair snaps and breaks at any point from the root all the way to the hair surface. And if that happens, even recovery becomes faster, because it means on the hair root here, because this is where we have the dermal cells, this is where mitosis happens, it's where the cell division happens. That's why you can see we have blood supply. This is where you have the living tissue that makes up the whole hair structure. So it means if the hair breaks any point above the dermal papilla, so it means the dermal cells are still undergoing mitosis, the cell division is still happening. So it means if you do nothing and the cells are still duplicating, you just need time, most of the times between around 2 to 3 months, and then without doing anything, then the hair will shoot again, because the dermal cells are still active. But in case you lose the hair and the dermal papilla part is affected, it will take more time. So if the dermal papilla is affected, it will take more time, especially where the stem cells are there and the sebaceous gland is there, then it is just a matter of time. And most of these people between 4 and 6 months, then new hair starts to grow again. So if your hair snaps anywhere, and this is why it is likely that if you're having traction alopecia, you can be able to recover your hair, because the part that is affected by traction is on the structure, not on the cells and the sebaceous gland. So it is likely to be recovered. And that gives us a scientific difference between frontal fibrosing alopecia that happens on the hairline and traction alopecia that also happens on the hairline. So most of the people who are having frontal fibrosing alopecia, they talk of, I don't braid, I don't do styling, I just leave my hair, but I'm losing my hairline. Because remember, you have said this is hair loss that is mainly triggered, and it is mainly affected by your own body system, whereby something goes wrong in your body system, especially through your immune system, or your follicular tissues are affected, where your stem cells and the upper portion of the follicles are affected. Then eventually, the moment this upper part is affected, then that is permanent hair loss. If what is affecting your hair loss is from this part to the hair root, This part, if it is affected and damaged, then we can be able to recover the hair. So that is very important for us to know, especially to respect the difference between traction and frontal fibrosing, and also to know if you're having traction, what are the chances? Chances are there, yes, but it depends on the much of the extent of the damage and the duration that you have stayed with them with the problem. The sooner you address the traction alopecia, the better. The sooner you address the frontal fibrosing, the better. Remember, with the frontal fibrosing, we don't have a high chance of recovering the hair after it has been destroyed. But with the frontal fibrosing, we are saving more hairs from being affected and stopping the action of destruction, so you don't lose more hairs. With the traction alopecia, yes, because the cause is artificially inflicted, we stop the cause. That is mainly through styling. We stop those styles that are affecting the hair. Then number two, we start stimulating the dermal cells so that it can be able to produce new hair. And that's why with the traction alopecia, then you have a high chance of recovering the hair. No, we have talked about causes, hairstyling. We have extensions. We have weaves. We have like people who are always on safety helmets, like people who do a lot of motorcycle riding, construction workers who are always on those tight helmets. So along the hairline, they're always affected. Those people who put accessories, very tight accessories like clips, like bonds, then they are good candidates of that. People with very long hair, people who do long hairstyles and mainly they leave them hanging. They put tension on the hairline. Hair relaxers, especially people who are not properly trained, because we have hairdressers in the salon who have learned how to do the trade by in-job training, but they don't have respect for hair science, so they become very risky when it comes to relaxer applications. And remember, those who have been trained, they know how to apply relaxers, that when you're doing your first round application of relaxers, you don't apply on the hairline. When you're smoothening, that's when you apply the hairline, because the hairline is mainly, we have very porous hairs, very thin hairs, so porosity is high, so you don't need to apply relaxers early. Those who don't know even how to apply, you find somebody applying relaxers from the hairline, either the front or they start applying at the back. That's somebody who's supposed to go back to school. They're the ones who are contributing to people having hair loss issues, and they don't know, and the information is there. So that is good for them to be able to seek the right information. And those people who do relax the hair and then they put gels, then you have the highest chance of you getting the problem. What are the signs? Some of the signs that comes with the traction alopecia mainly are itching. When you find that your hairline is getting itchy, especially after you're being styled, especially the second that day, you're itching your hairline, you're likely now you can get traction alopecia. When you feel pain, ladies, I'm talking to you. Ladies, I'm talking to you. Because remember, I know you make fantastic styles and your hair look great, but why compromise the quality of your hair by doing a nice style today and then tomorrow you don't have hair? You start looking for wigs. Why don't you be on average? Don't do crazy styles, but do styles that will be able to maintain and hold the integrity of your hair. There are ladies who go to salons and they do hairstyles and then they can't sleep. They have to take painkillers so that they sleep. Can you imagine? You do a hairstyle to a point where you get a serious headache, even you can't turn your head. I've seen ladies coming from the salon the following day. When you meet them on the street, they're walking like a robot. They can't even, when they're turning, they have to turn the whole body because no muscle is supposed to move on the scalp. Actually, how I wish you find a lady with a very clean hairstyle, freshly braided, and then, wow, you have fantastic hair. You got to touch the slap that you get on your hand. Hey, stop it, don't touch it. Why? The pain that they can feel. Is it worth it? And then after the style, you stay with it for a month, and then you get traction alopecia. Is it worth the effort? The money you paid for the style, the pain that you felt, the sleepless nights, especially the first 3 nights, are quite hectic. Some of them, I understand, they literally put their head in their wardrobes when they go to sleep. If there's no, you can put that head on the pillow. It's a huge sacrifice that we do. But it's a high time that even if we sacrifice for styling, let us do safe styling because we can be able to avoid this. So any pain that is warranting headaches and painkillers is a huge contribution to traction alopecia. when your scalp gets red, when your hairline gets redness, that is, you can find it's getting more red than other areas of your forehead or the scalp. When you start getting scales, when you scratch and then there's some sort of scales that are coming out. People call them dandruffs, but they're not dandruffs, but they're just scales. When those scalings are coming out, then is likely that now that effect is too much and you can easily get traction alopecia. When you get pustules, what you call pimples, inflammations on the follicles, that is another likelihood that you'll be a candidate of traction alopecia. If you find that you're having irregular lengths on your hairline, you're having shorter lengths, at the same time you're having longer lengths on your hairline, there is breakage that is attributable to the pulling when styling the hair. So multiple short broken hairs on the hairline is an indication that you're a candidate of traction alopecia. And also thinning. Your hairline is thinner in terms of density. You have less density when you compare it with the rest of the head. It means as you continue doing your styling, more hairs are being pulled out. So thinning now becomes a characteristic that you can easily note. So Jane Sarah, I've seen your question. I'll be able to answer you after the video. Jerry Shege, you're very much welcome. Mary Wanjiro, you're also very much welcome to the video. Remember, I've said initially when traction alopecia is manifesting itself or is starting, it starts as a non-cicatricial alopecia, or it starts as a non-scarring alopecia. But if you left for long, if prolonged, if you don't treat it, or if you don't stop it, if you don't stop the action of you getting traction alopecia, then the excesses of you prolonging the cause, it will lead now to the destruction of the hair follicles and eventually translates your hair loss from non-scarring to scarring alopecia, from non-permanent to permanent hair loss. So braiding, holding gel styles, those gellings that we love doing, tight dreadlocks, especially when you're retouching or when you're locking them, weaving, styling dreadlocks, doing those micro twists, that have a lot of tension on the follicles, then those are causing factors. Now, for us to, because I've talked about the causing factors, what do we need to do? And that's why now I'm in the part of some quick solutions, because some of the solutions you have them yourself. Some of these will be because much of the hair loss is coming from styling. Now the solution comes in through the same styling. When you're doing a hairstyle, do a loose hairstyle. And this is how I always put it professionally, that it is better for your hairline not to look neat and save it than for your hairline to look neat and clean and you lose it. Both you and your hairdresser, you're on the losing edge because there'll be no hair to take to the salon. There is no hair to hold your beauty. And that's why it becomes very key. Tension becomes enemy number one. Number two, if the hair is too long, cut it shorter. If you have the option of styling, especially now people on my region, this region of the world, we do braids where we can have long braids. You find already doing braids that are long enough to reach the knees. Can you imagine the weight of that structure from the knee going all the way to the scalp? That weight, and then they stay with it for like a month, even other crazily go for 2 months. Then that weight is too much. Don't do those long styles. And in case you do long styles and you don't have tension, then hold the styles up so that you can redistribute the weight from the hairline. Also, avoid exposing the hairline to chemicals, especially relaxers, texturizers. At the same time, heat. Avoid heat as much as possible. Not only for the hairline, heat and chemicals are supposed to be used with a lot of caution to all the parts of the head. That is all the hairs on the head. So no hair is supposed to be subjected to unfair treatment of chemicals. At the same time, a lot of heat. Enemy number one of African hair, if I'm more categorical, because our hair is totally different in terms of structure. And that's why much of these styles that we do them when you're looking for maintenance of our hair, because maintaining our hair is quite a challenge. So we do a lot of heat. We tend to do a lot of chemicals. We need to have a lot of control over that. Enemy number one, heat. Enemy number two, chemicals. Let's avoid that as much as possible. If you have to do it with caution. I'll do another video now talking about the parameters that you can operate. Because yes, you can do heat, but minimal. We can do chemicals controlled. for those who do that, because we do that, yes, but they need to do with a lot of control. But that would be another video altogether when it comes to the effects of heat and chemicals and hair and the contribution they have when it comes to hair loss. That would be a video for another day. So for us to have good solutions, it's always good. If you find yourself that you're starting out to have an issue with your hair, it is always good to look for a specialist. And trichologists are the specialists who are trained on hair and scalp problems and treatments. So we as certified trichologists, we are the people who are trained on how to handle hair and scalp issues and their treatment. So if you're having a problem, look for a trichologist who is close by. And then when you go to a trichologist, it's very important for them to take you through the whole process in terms of the causing factors, in terms of where your hair loss is at that particular moment, and then most importantly, how the treatment plan will be affected, how the hair will be treated. Remember, I talked about two issues: treatment and then recovery. So it's always important for a trichologist to devise a very good treatment plan that will guarantee that your hair is going to come around. So that is very important. In severe cases, in case the hair loss is permanent and then you are treated, that is, you don't have any more risk of losing more hair, then it means we have options where we can have hair transplants. For those who are not aware, we do hair transplants where you have good hair, especially at the back, because this way we have the best hair on the scalp. Hairs are harvested, and in case you're losing your hairline, then the hairs are planted, and then you're able to replace the hairs that you have lost. And also you have camouflage techniques, that is techniques techniques that are used to hide the hair loss, but of course they have their own challenges. That will be another video that will talk about that. Now, still on treatment, because I talked about treatment and then recovery. On treatment, there is no specific cure that is documented that can be able to help people who are having hairline loss issues. But there are means and ways that, because in hair loss treatment, what works for client A is not necessary to work for client B. And that's why we have variance in treatments. And that's why it is important for us to, when you go for your consultation, for a way to be devised and monitoring to be done so that you can have a good treatment that will specifically work for you. Patty, thank you so much. Ididi K. Marafa, you're very much welcome. Gerald Daniel Kamau, you're also very welcome to the video. So among the treatment options that we have medical treatments, or what I can call clinical treatments, where you go to a clinical facility. And in clinical facility, there are options that are there where there can be topical applications for you to control the hair loss. Also, there are injectables where you're injected with the certain medicine so that you can be able to bring the hair loss into control. And then the ones that are mainly used clinically, we have antibiotics. In case you have, remember we talked about follicle being infected by bacteria, especially when you dislocate the hair and then we have an opening and then the bacteria go in the follicle and cause follicular infection. So in case that is the case where you have an infection, then that is a clinical case where antibiotics to prevent infection of the follicle. Also, we have either topical or intralesional steroids. They can be injected or can be given to apply on the surface. Also, sometimes if fungi are a suspect as a causing factor or a contributing factor to the hair loss, so clinically you can be given topical antifungals, and this can be in terms of gels, it can be in terms of shampoos, medicated shampoos that you can use, and then you can bring the whole issue into control. Also, you can be given that is hair growth motivators or stimulators, and one of them is minoxidil. And then you can do as the last resort or the last option, you can do hair replacement or hair transplant. That can be done. The second way that we're able to address these problems, and of course, there are limitations, that there are ways to overcome the limitations, either clinical or management. The second way is hair growth and scalp management, because the scalp has to be assisted and helped so that it can be able to support the hair and to keep the hair growing. So here we do behavioral management, whereby through the styling that you do and through how you manage and stay with your hair, is giving you hairline problems. So we start by giving you behavioral modification. You have to change the behaviors, or the way, the means that you handle your hair and you deal with your hair. You have to change, because that is what is contributing now to the hair problem. So in case we don't stop what is making you get hair loss, it means even if you give you any treatment, the best in the world, it cannot help, because the causing factor is still very active, and you have to bring it to deactivation. You have to stop it. Number two, you have to do scalp stimulation. We have to make sure that the internal environment of the hair of the scalp is so conducive, so strong, to support those hairs that are struggling. Remember, you talked about especially traction alopecia, that the dermal cells are there, and they can still produce hair. So we need to stimulate the tissues so that we can have even better production of the dermal cells, so that we can have even healthier hair growing. So there's a high chance, even if you lose hair through traction alopecia, there is a very high chance of growing even healthier hair than the hair that was previously there. Another thing that needs to be done is supplementation. Hair grows from the food that we eat, and that's why in case of any deficiency, the first sign that we see it on the hair. So for us to be able to guarantee better growth and recovery of the hairline, we need to have good supplementation, key supplements that are important for hair growth, so that we can be able to have good nourishment on the dermal cells, so that they can produce and give us the best hair that you have ever gotten. Also, we need to incorporate natural oils. Natural oils are very nutritive, and they are very supportive to hair growth. Not all the oils, but we have specific oils that are very supportive to hair growth. So we also infuse natural oils on the scalp, because we do them topically, and then the scalp will be absorbing it slowly, and then the effect goes now to the dermal cells, and then from the surface everything is okay. You do supplementation and stimulation from the root, everything is okay. So all the tissues that support hair growth, from the epidermis all the way to the subcutaneous tissue, are very vibrant when it comes to hair growth, and that we are able now to produce very good hair. And with that, if we can do what we are supposed to do in terms of protecting the hair, we can avoid these hair losses. But at the same time, sometimes in some situations we cannot be able to control, and the hair loss comes. There's no problem, because solutions are always there, and we can always have solution for much of the hair losses that we have. The good thing is, over 70%, 80% of hair losses, they can be recovered, and especially if they're discovered in good time. So it means we can be able to avoid much disruptions of our work schedules, much disruptions of our own self-esteem, much disruption of our own way of studying and living with our own hair. So those disruptions can easily be controlled if help is sought early in advance. And that is my message for you today. So as I started, for those who have joined in between the video, my name is Trichologist John. I'm a certified trichologist. I'm also a hair educator. So I do education, and I do online education. I do physical education for people who want now to understand the hair and be good ambassadors of good hair and promote the health of the hair. Hair science is very supportive, because that is what gives life to the hair. And that's why when it comes to hair training, for those who are training to be hairdressers, it's important, as you're trained on how to twist and turn the hair to make fantastic styles, it is also very crucial in 21st century. It's very crucial for you to be taught about hair science. Hair science is what keeps the hair on the scalp. It's what keeps the hair on the head. And hair art is what the client pays you to do if you're a hairdresser. When you go to the salon, you go because of hair science, because they will change the appearance of your hair artistically, and then you pay them for what they have changed and what people will be seeing and appreciating about beauty on that particular person's head. But what keeps the hair in the scalp for you to be able to style it is hair science. And most of the times we tend not to respect hair science. We do things through hair art, and automatically affects the hair science, and then you find that the client is not having hair. What are you going to get? Where are you going to get your daily bread from? And that's why it is very important. Even those who are doing training, it's very important for us to train our hairdressers in the 21st century way, whereby we incorporate a lot of science so that we can keep the hair on the head. There is nothing beautiful like understanding the hair science. I'll see you later. I'll do another video very soon. So those who have posted questions, I can see Agnes Peter, a friend of mine from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Thank you so much. I'll be able to come back to you. I can see there's a big welcome being given to South Africa. So we'll talk about that. But in those introvos from South Africa, thank you so much. I've seen you have posted a question. I'll be coming to your questions at the end of the video when on the timeline. So I'll be very busy after this so that I can be able to engage you in all the issues that you have. If you have any question about hair, I thank God the information is there, so we can be able to share that. Janet Gary, thank you so much. You have kept me company from the beginning. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your presence from the beginning all the way to the end. And thank you so much. You're free to share the videos, even in groups, to reach as many people as possible. And if you want to reach to me, you can reach to me through social media, especially now because this is a platform you're in. You can do me a messenger, and then from there we'll be able to engage for privacy and respect. So thank you so much, and I wish you a good evening. Here in Kenya, Nairobi is 6:17 or 18:17 hours. Is a good evening. It's in July. We're already in July. July in Nairobi is quite chilly. The temperatures are falling to about 15. To us, 15 is cold. So you can see we are in warm clothings. Because I know some of us, like my friend from NY, will tell me temperature here sometimes goes down to as low as negative. We have never experienced negative, and actually we are freezing at 15 degrees Celsius. You can imagine. So it's a cold time here in Nairobi, and we are doing good. So we are still promoting good health maintenance regimen for the people who will be able to reach us, and then we'll be able to assist you with any problem that you have on the hair, be it education. Be it hair loss solution, be it treatment, we are ready. We are ready for you. Thank you so much, and God bless you so much for watching the video. You guys, you're such a blessing to me, and I appreciate your time. You could have done other things, but you're together. Thank you so much, and God bless you mightily, and have a good evening. Thank you. God bless.